One of these is not stamped. Can you tell which one? Hi there, it's Therese from Lostinpaper. Welcome back. I have the Tranquility Rose stamp set, die set, and the matching simple colouring stencil set. And I'm going to be making 2 cards today using all of these products. And one of them doesn't have stamping, and that's because I'm going to be using this stencil. So hold tight. I've got a fun idea a little bit later in the video with this one. First, I'm going to start by stamping and embossing and heat embossing one of the main flower image and a couple of the leaves from the set. And I've done this on some of the watercolor cardstock from Altenew because I'm going to be doing some ink refill coloring. So you don't need to have watercolors, watercolor brush markers, you don't have to have watercolor pencils. If you've got ink refills, then you can get that watercolor look. So these are some of the newer colors from Altenew, and these ink pads are going to be released with today's release. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But they work just like a watercolor. So by heat embossing my image, I can actually speed color these flowers, and I know I will speed it up in a minute, and I don't mean it like that. What I mean is I can actually add the color to each petal and the leaves all at once. I don't have to worry about coloring one section and then waiting for it to dry to color another section. The only time I was waiting for the image, the ink to dry or the color to dry, was in between adding layers of depth. But what I like to do is actually add a little bit of that depth initially when I've got the colours, when I'm laying down the colours. So you might be noticing here I'm either adding water directly to the cardstock and then picking up colour and dropping it in, or I'm adding water to the colour because because they're ink refills, they're very intense colours, and you can reactivate them. So if you don't want to waste any ink, you can actually leave them on your palette, and then or you can spritz it with some water and drop your cardstock in afterwards and get like a nice sort of smooshed effect. So you don't have to sort of waste ink by using it this way. It goes such a long way. These refills will just last forever. So if you have refills on hand, you can get that watercolor look by doing a similar image or similar sort of coloring style to this. With the leaves, I did add a couple of different layers initially, but I wasn't really happy with the depth of color that I achieved. So if I'm not really happy with something, what I like to do is actually leave it and then come back to it. And I did that same with the flower. I'm looking at the flower here thinking, I really like the colors, they're beautiful. It just lacks a bit of oomph. So I'm just sitting there watching that dry and thinking, will I add another color or will I add a darker color? And in the end, I decided to come into both of my images, both the flower and the leaf images, after they dried, and add a whole nother layer of colour. I know, it's scary, right? But I promise it's worth it. It just adds such depth. It wasn't there before. Now, this is part of a hop. This video is part of an Altenew release hop, so I'll put the link in the description below and you'll find out how you can win if you're here in December 2020. But it also has a list of full supplies that I've used today, and also I will link all the other creators on the hop so you get lots more inspiration with the fabulous products that are being released today. So I've die cut the flowers and leaves with the coordinating dies after they dried, and now I want to create sort of a textured background, and this is the angled mosaic 3D embossing folder, and to run it through my Gemini Junior all I need is a base and a top plate and the actual 3D folder. No other shims, plates or anything's necessary. And look at the dimension that die has. It's awesome. How fun is that? Alright, I've cut it down a little bit. I'm going to pop it up on the front of my card, and I'm also going to pop up my rose and leaves. These are on just used foam dots, and I like to sort of alter the layers up. I did use a strong adhesive because of the layers or the texture in the background. I want to make sure that it's hitting enough spots that it's going to stay in place when I send this card away. The sentiment, this one's from the handwritten hello die set, and because I have the edge of the hello on the leaf, I didn't want it to look wonky, so I did die cut it twice, added some matte medium, and on the base layer of the hello I just snipped away the bits that were going to be on the leaf, and that just will mean that everything's at the same height, and it just gives that word a little bit more dimension. How pretty are these colours? Alton, you have the best ink colours, seriously. Every release I think, I don't need any more colours, and then I see them and they are beautiful. It's just something, they're almost antique-y, old-fashioned colours, really pretty. Alright, so this is the no stamping flower version. I know, right? How cool are these stencils? I chose 2 layers of the rose stencil here. So this is the same. I can actually use this with the stamped image to colour the stamped image, the Tranquility Rose. But what I decided to do was actually use the stencils only to create my panel of flowers and leaves. I didn't use the very base colour. I chose the second and the third layering. It's almost like stamp layering without stamping. It's stamp layering, it's stencil layering, almost. That would be good. It is, it's stencil layering, and you get the same result. And you can mix your colours, you can use whatever you want, and these blending tools just make it a breeze. I do leave my post-it notes in place when I'm moving my images around, and that just saves a little bit of time. And this set also comes with the positive portion of the rose, so I can use that as a mask. So I have actually got that protecting my flower while I'm adding the leaves, so that the leaves look like they're behind the roses. And I used a couple of different layers again on the leaves. I didn't use all the layers, and came in with the classic Greenfields inks this time. Look beautiful with these purples. These purples are the sugar plum, and I was thinking about it after, and I think these images would look fabulous as well if you came in and just offset the stamp over top just that little bit, or even stamp over the top with the darkest sugar plum purple. That would be fabulous too. But I just wanted to see what kind of a look I could get just using the stencils, and this panel came together really quickly. Look how pretty that is. And see how there's that bit of white on the edge of the petal there near the leaves? That's meant to be there. That's actually, because I didn't do the base layer of the flower, that's actually where the petal of the flower rolls over, or the, you know, where the highlight of the petal of the flower would be. And look how dark this plum colour is. It's beautiful. And Alton also has the small ink blending tools. They would be really perfect for this as well. I just like the speed of using the bigger tools, and I find it easy enough just to add the post-it notes to protect the rest of my cardstock. And when I'd finished all my blending, I did cut this panel down so it was just slightly smaller than the card front. The sentiment I'm going to add today is from the Mega Label Love set, and I stamped it out in one of the sugar plum colours. It was the grape agate, so it's a nice dark one. But when I cut that down with my trimmer, it does leave kind of a white edge, so I came in with just a grey marker. Don't use the alcohol markers though, they do bleed into the cardstock, so just a simple marker worked just fine. I added the panel to the front of the card, and then all that was left to do was pop up my sentiment on with some foam squares. So I hope that you're inspired today to look at your stamps and try colouring them differently, just to see what different looks you can get. And perhaps if you've got one of the colouring stencils from Altenew, have a look at it and see if you can create a floral card without stamping. It's a lot of fun, I guarantee it. Thanks for joining me here today. If you did like today's video, then click on the thumbs up button to let me know that you did, and if you haven't already, it'd be great if you could subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you again here real soon. Till then, happy paper crafting. Bye.